October 8th, 2023. The time is approximately 12:15 p.m. and this is an interview with President Joseph Biden.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Mr. President, thank you for your time. Actually, it's Saturday afternoon. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for being here. We appreciate your time very much. I think just for clarity of the record, I should quickly go around and make a note of everyone who's here. I'm Robert Herr, the Special Counsel, joined by Robert Herr and also the Special Counsel's Office, and we're joined by two FBI agents. President Biden, obviously you're here. Thank you very much. You're joined by members of the White House Counsel's team, White House Counsel Ben Siskel, Dick Sauber, and Rachel Cotton. And also your two personal counsel, Bob Bauer and David Hawking. Have I missed anybody? Did not see it. No. All right. Well then, with that, I have some preliminary matters to go over briefly, but before I do that, do you all have anything else you'd like to say before we jump in? No? All right. Well, Mr. President, I do want to take an additional minute and thank you for being here and making this time for us. I know there's a lot of other things in the world going on that demand your attention.
We may get interrupted by one.
Understood.
I hope not.
We hope
I
not.
just got off the phone with people that things.
Yes, sir. So I also wanted to say that we know that you have provided significant cooperation with our investigation. And I wanted to personally recognize that and thank you for it.
FBI knows my house better than I do.
Not sure about that, so.
I'm pretty sure.
I hope it's been obvious during the months that we've been at work that my goals have been to do a thorough and professional job, but also to do it as swiftly as possible. And your cooperation has been very helpful in us trying to achieve all of those goals, especially the efficiency of our investigation. On the topic of cooperation, as federal prosecutors, we do assess cooperation at the end of an investigation. Obviously, your willingness to sit for this interview today and tomorrow and answer our questions is part of that cooperation. It's obviously very important to answer our questions truthfully, and we appreciate very much your willingness, and we hope that you will be able to, that you will put forth your best efforts in really trying to get your best recollection in response to the questions we ask, because I acknowledge that some of the questions we are asking relate to events that happened years ago.
I'm a young man, so it's not a problem.
Okay, great. Glad you. A couple other ministerial notes. I may ask a question that is unclear or badly phrased. I sometimes do that. I often do that. If I ever ask a question that you don't quite understand, you need clarification, then you should just say, I don't understand what you're saying. You should ask me to try to clarify, and I'll take another crack at it.
Okay.
And then, should you ever want to take a break today? Or
By the way, there's a restroom right behind us here.
Thank you.
Resting as well.
Good to know. Thank you. Should you ever want to take a break during the interview, including to confer with members of the White House Counsel's Office, your personal counsel, all you got to do is just let us know that, and we'll take a break.
Okay.
All right.
Rob,
Yes.
on the question of clarity of the question, we don't want to interrupt the flow. Of course, if Ed or I have any uncertainty about what you're asking, we may also ask for clarity about the question.
I would be surprised if you did not.
I'm just confident of that.
All right. Any other preliminaries before we jump in? Okay. Well, Mr. President, normally we start these kinds of interviews by asking the witness to tell us a little bit about their background. You probably have had your background documented as well or better than any other person on the planet today, so we will not be asking you to take us back to Scranton. We will be asking you to take us back more recently, back to the end of the Obama administration, so January of 2017. So if you cast your mind back to that time, you, at that point,
Yes, of course.
You at that point were about to become a private citizen for the first time in 40 years. That would be the first time in 4 decades that you were not in government service. So could you just tell us a little bit about what you were planning on doing with your time as a private citizen? What kind of projects and pursuits you were thinking about engaging in? And a note about this question, I am thinking about public external facing pursuits as opposed to personal family oriented pursuits, if that helps narrow the category of things.
I was going to become a professor at the University of Pennsylvania. And I was working at the University of Delaware for a Biden School on domestic policy. And so my objective was to stay engaged in public policy debate and teach. By the way, I taught before, when I was a senator on Saturdays for a number of years. I taught at Delaware Law School. I taught a course in constitutional law on Saturday mornings. So it was, I wanted to continue that kind of work.
Understood. So with respect to your professorship and the Penn Biden Center, how much of your time did you anticipate spending on that post-vice presidency?
All of it.
All of it?
Well, yeah, I mean, it was a job. How much time do you expect to spend on your, I'm not being facetious. I mean, I wanted to have recreation and other things. I don't mean that, but this was going to be my job.
And how did your participation in the efforts of the Biden Institute factor into that as well?
Well, that was part of it as well. Penn knew that I was working with the Biden Institute on domestic policy. And the real advantage I had in the Penn job was they gave me money to hire staff. So I was able to hire some first-rate people, like the Secretary of State now is my Secretary of State, who worked for me at the Penn Center, at the Penn Biden Center. And so it was, you know, it was about being engaged in matters that I thought were still consequential. Domestic policy was related mainly to matters having to do with the Judiciary Committee on Economic Policy. And at Penn, it was mainly doing foreign policy.
One of the other things that we know that you spent some significant amount of time doing after the end of your vice presidency was writing a book, Promise Me Dad. So when you were thinking about writing that book at the end of your vice presidency, how much time did you anticipate that would take of yours?
I didn't anticipate, I couldn't, it took more time than the first book I wrote. I wrote a bestseller early on, was on the bestsellers list. And then what I wanted to do was write a book about my son because he was a remarkable man. And I wanted my grandchildren and great-grandchildren and family to understand who he was and have some documentation of it. I wasn't writing it at the time, thinking that it was going to sell, you know, it was going to be a bestseller, that kind of thing. But I wanted people to know what a normal, this is a guy who, you know, on his deathbed, grabbed my hand and said, Dad, I'm not afraid. Don't promise me, Dad. Promise me, Dad, you'll stay engaged. Promise me. Because he knew how much I adored him. And he was worried I'd sort of walk away from everything I've always worked on. So I want people to know what kind of man he was.
And we're going to be talking about Promise Me Dad more further on and tomorrow as well. But please just allow me to say a little about him. So terribly sorry for your loss.
You know, a lot of people have had similar losses or worse without the kind of support I had. I have a family that's an incredible family. And so I just know that I wonder all the people out there I've written about and talked about. There's so many brave people that up every morning put one foot in front of the other. And I don't know how the hell they do it. Just keep moving forward. But I have a lot of help.
One other thing that we understand you spent significant time on at the end of your vice presidency as well as post-vice presidency was the Biden Cancer Initiative,
Yes.
also known as the Cancer Moonshot. So can you tell us about your thinking in January 2017 about how much time that was going to take of yours and its relative priority and other things that you were working on?
was a high priority, and that's one of the reasons why I like Penn as well. Penn has a great medical school and a great cancer research facility up there. And I talked to the president of Penn, and I talked to people at the school. And Bo had engaged with them as well, as a patient. And so the great thing about Penn, it wasn't a straight line. I had access to a whole range of experts who could help me on the things that I thought I could help. They thought I could be added value, I think, as well. And and the way that came about was in order to try to deal with what Bo was facing, I visited every major cancer research facility in the world, with one exception, to interview and find out about what they knew about glioblastoma, what they knew about various, because I'm still convinced, I'm still working on the cancer initiative, well, what I found was that cancer docs are incredible, but a lot of them walk by that mirror looking at themselves as a Pulitzer Prize, a Nobel Prize about to be won. They don't share data and information very much. So under the Obama administration, he told me I could begin the research and see what we should be doing as an administration to deal with cancer. And what I did find out was there's very little collaboration. And even on projects where there's a lot of money, the federal government puts out for research projects. And the deal is you're supposed to, once that project is finished, publish it. Well, the vast majority don't publish it for a long time. And they never publish their failures. When I say not their failures, when they didn't reach the conclusion they were looking for. And you learn